What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 3 and Out YouTube page. I'm John Middlekauff, and we are talking football all day, every day. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends. Let's roll, baby. What is going on, everybody? Football is back. Football is back. We finally have a real game. Doesn't get any better than this. So we're going to dive into just football being back, dive in a little bit to the Chiefs-Ravens, kind of what's on the line for the Ravens, clearly more than the Chiefs, not just this game, but this season. Because it's that time of year. We'll do a few predictions. I thought, why don't I do a Power 5 and a Bottom 5 and pick the divisions? It's pretty hard not to pick the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. Right? They've won the last two. Now, it's never been done in the history. So probably got to go with someone else. But the Chiefs are my people. But we'll dive into just some of my big picture predictions for the season. And just today's a celebratory day. It really is. It just doesn't get any better. Football, just football and more football. We got a taste with college football last week. But now we have NFL games every Thursday, Sunday, and Monday. So, and obviously during the holidays, you get all different days. So buckle up. I don't even know. We'll have to keep track of the schedule here. But this is fun. It doesn't get much better than this. Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Andy Reid, John Harbaugh. This is going to be a physical game. So before we dive into some football, obviously, do you want to go to one of these games, college or pro? I'd highly recommend it. Been to a lot of football games in my life, and it's just a great communal experience. You go, especially if you're going to your team, shared experience with your friends, with people you don't even know in your city, and you do it because of my friends at Game Time, the official ticketing app of this podcast. You just go to Game Time, search any event, search the specific game, search if you want to go to a concert, the venue you want to attend, just type it in. And then you can search by price point, how much you want to spend, how close you want to be. They got you covered. I've been using them for a long time. Cannot recommend them enough. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. This is a beautiful day. It really is. My favorite part about football season is just how different your interactions are with your friends, with people you see at the gym, people, if you play a little golf, people you see at the golf course. Everyone's talking football. And in a society that many say, my life, everyone's pretty friendly, but I guess it's divided out there on the streets. If you live on the internet, a lot of division. Football brings people together. And it's the one thing that we all have in common. Number one television show in America for a reason. It's the only thing that we can agree on that we can all watch. And obviously the NFL, college football, was doing Georgia and Clemson and Texas A&M and Notre Dame did NBA finals numbers. The NFL obviously dwarfs college football in terms of the amount of people that watch. And college football is a massive, massive product in terms of interest right now. So the amount of people that are paying attention, a lot of people have talked about this, but I think there is a massive growth in the NFL with women. People like me have been watching since, I don't know, I can walk and talk, but the popularity of this sport has only grown. And I think one thing that separates the NFL definitely and has really helped them lap the other sports in terms of popularity, they're not dependent on market. They're really not. The Chiefs clearly are not some massive market in America. It's not Los Angeles. It's not the Bay Area. It's not Chicago. It's not New York. And yet, they're the biggest brand in football right now. Now, there are variables. They have one of the greatest coaches of all time. They have one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Their star tight end is dating, you could argue, one of the most famous women singers of all time. But that's football. They're not dependent like the NBA, for example. If Curry and LeBron aren't playing come April and May, the NBA's got problems in terms of numbers.
And the NFL, whether the Jags and the Texans play in the first round or whether it's Cowboys or Packers, it's the one thing we agree on we're all going to watch. And listen, it's sad. We used to, when I was a kid, we didn't have as many channels. Hell, I didn't even get cable till I was in high school. That everyone kind of watched the same things. We all watched the same games. We all watched the same television shows. Now I could pull 10 different people walking down the street and they're all watching a different television show. Why? We got 7 million streaming options. And I mean, I have so many streaming different platforms, I can't find anything to watch at 9:30 at night. But when football's on, I can. And I know when I'm watching, obviously, these one-off games in prime time, but even come the weekend, a lot of other people are watching it. And that's something cool about America that we still have in common, that we all like football. And I'm glad it's been my favorite sport to watch since I was a little kid. Had a little cup of coffee playing in high school and have loved it ever since. And there's not really a game I can't speak to hockey, but the combination of the studying, the practice, the difference of hockey is you only play once a week, right? In football, the lead up, the closeness you develop with your team, the intensity of getting coached and screamed at every level. I mean, you go to a peewee practice somewhere in America and kids are getting yelled at. And it might be a little different than maybe something you would have seen in the 60s and 70s. But you're not going to NFL and college practices and seeing everyone holding hands. And there's just an appreciation for, as a fan and as a consumer, if you're paying for a ticket to go to a game, that everyone's going to play if they physically can. And if they're playing, they're giving you everything they have. And that's, I think, all anyone can ask for. Your team's going to lose games. Some teams are obviously way shittier than others and going to lose a lot. But especially early on in the season, before teams actually know they're bad, everyone's throwing the kitchen sink at each other. It's just awesome. We got so many characters in this television show that is the NFL. Obviously, the star players led by the quarterbacks. The coaches are really, really famous. The owners are really, really famous. The commissioner is famous. And they all play a role in this thing that we call the NFL, which is the number one television show in America by a pretty wide margin for a reason. It's incredible entertainment. There are things that people complain about. It's not as physical. I do sometimes. I miss elements of the football I grew up on, but I'm still glued. I still have a good time. And maybe I'll bitch and moan about some calls, especially if I'm gambling on a team and think a ref screws me. But there's nothing I'd rather be doing on Thursday night than watching the Chiefs-Ravens Week 1 opening kickoff. And let's speak of the game. The Chiefs proved last year this opening week meant nothing to them. They lost to the Lions. Now, granted, remember, Kelsey was hurt during training camp and went on to win the Super Bowl. So this game, in any individual regular season game, the regular season no longer means anything to the Chiefs. Obviously, they have to win enough games to make the playoffs, and they'll win the division because that's what they've been doing for 6 or 7 straight years. But in terms of overreacting, I'm done doing that. They had never played a road playoff game till last year, and then they rattled off 2 as big underdogs in Buffalo and in Kansas and in Baltimore. So they are, to me, now the Kevin Durant Golden State Warriors. They can pick their spots in the regular season. I expect them, obviously, to try in this game and want to win it. But they are judged simply, they're the only team in the league that can say this. Anything less than a Super Bowl is a devastating blow. It sucks. It's a letdown. In college football, for a long period of time, only Alabama could say it. Then Clemson and Georgia threw their hat in the ring. But no one else in the NFL. Like, obviously, losing in the Super Bowl sucks. Ask any 49er fan. But that was still an extremely impressive season. It sucks to lose. Tip your hat to Mahomes. Tip your hat to Andy Reid and Kyle Shanahan. Probably you don't want to kick off or accept the ball in overtime. But, that is a great season. The Chiefs have that same season. It's devastating because they got 3 rings now in the last 5 years, and for a reason. They have one of the best players we've ever seen in any sport in Patrick Mahomes. They have the best tight end of all time. And here's the difference of this Chiefs team than some of those early iterations, and we saw it on full display last year. Their defense is awesome. And one of the great advantages Andy has is a lot of head coaches when they have an elite coordinator, they have to worry about losing them. It just happened to John Harbaugh. Mike Macdonald, after 2 years, like, this guy's boy genius, best defense in the league. Boom. Interview Seattle, hired. Gone. And now they have to go with, or a 32-year-old former player who's been coaching with them basically since 2017. But in a perfect world, if John Harbaugh could choose, he would just have Mike Macdonald not become a head coach and keep his defensive coordinator. And he doesn't need to worry about that. Fair or not, Steve Spagnuolo is not going to become a head coach again. So as long as Andy Reid is there and Spags wants to just keep being an assistant coach and make millions of dollars being the DC, he has to keep his coordinator. So the play caller is never going to leave because that's Andy. And their defensive coordinator is now a stalwart in the operation, is not going anywhere. So enormous advantage for the Chiefs, big picture. They've proven they shipped Tyreek out, boom, back-to-back Super Bowls. Why? Because Veach nailed the draft. Trent McDuffie became a stud. Chris Jones obviously was already on the squad. And the overall defense is just really, really good. And they're really deep at defensive back. And Spags proved it down the stretch last year. His game planning in these big games is elite. And anytime you have a coordinator who you feel very, very confident on in big games, it's a huge, huge advantage. And he took Lamar and he took Todd Monken to the woodshed. So my expectations for the Chiefs, you add Xavier Worthy. I was looking at this. Tyreek Hill as a rookie. Obviously, he was a later round pick, but that was because he had gotten in a lot of trouble. He was clearly like a top 40 player. You know, he's become one of the best players in the history of the game. But coming out of the draft that year, just town alone, he's probably a top 30, 40 player in that draft if the character stuff. And he's become an all-time great. His rookie year, here's what he did. 61 catches, almost 600 yards, and 6 touchdowns receiving the ball. He had 270 yards and 3 touchdowns rushing the ball. He also had 3 more touchdowns, I think 2 as a punt returner and 1 as a kickoff returner. So as a rookie, Tyreek Hill had 12 touchdowns. Now, I don't expect Xavier Worthy to do that. I think that's a little unfair. But if Xavier Worthy can give them 7, 8 touchdowns, maybe 6 in the air and a couple more end arounds, handoff type plays, that's big advantage for the Chiefs. And I think they clearly lacked this guy the last couple of years since Tyreek, rightfully so. They got rid of him and they just didn't have as much speed on the outside. Well, you add this guy who the Chiefs are really, really high on. Because I remember when I got hired in Philadelphia, everyone just thought of Deshaun Jackson, like this unreal go route guy. He actually was a really good route runner and had elite hands. So when you get a guy who's more than just a speed guy who can run routes and has good ball skills / hands, it's a massive advantage when you have, I don't know, the second or third best quarterback of all time in the prime of his career. So I expect the Chiefs to be a lot better on offense, and they already have one of the best defenses. That's where you look at the Ravens and you go, that's one of the most devastating playoff losses I've ever seen. It really is. And as a kid, I saw a couple. It was when the Cowboys beat the 49ers. When you lose at home in a championship game, I don't care who you're playing, former champion, the defending champs, whatever, and you're the favorite, it is the biggest kick in the nuts you can possibly have as a fan. I'd argue losing in the championship game at home it's worse than going to the Super Bowl and losing. I don't think there's any worse feeling than championship game to go to the Super Bowl as a favorite and losing. Now, you could argue losing in the Super Bowl as a favorite, as the Niners, sucks. But if you lose as the underdog, of all my life watching these good Ravens teams, my adult life, that has to be, I don't know. I think they had a bad loss the year before they won the Super Bowl to Brady. I think that was 2011. Ray Lewis kind of gave a famous speech in the locker room where he says, "Joe, hold your head up." And he kind of gave Joe confidence. Next year, Joe comes back. They go on the Super Bowl run. But it doesn't get much worse, especially given that Lamar had won the MVP. Now, granted, it was a down MVP year. Like his MVP that he won years before, what was that, 2019, was way more impressive than last year. Last year was led by the defense. One of the great defenses of the internet era. I mean, it was incredible. But to lose like that, Todd Monken and Lamar they thought about that moment, and hopefully so if you're a Ravens fan, every single day, a lot of the day up until the schedule came out. And then the moment the schedule comes out, you find out we get these guys. Game one. To me, this game's all about the Ravens, right? If the Chiefs win, of course they win. Favorite defending champs is what they do. But it's like, I don't know, man. I'm not going to act like the Ravens are going to stink because they never do. They're just a high level operation. But I think they're coming back to earth a little bit. The days of just kicking everybody's ass. And I can think of 4 or 5 blowouts against great teams off the top of my head. I mean, last year, the 2 teams in the NFC Championship, the Lions and the 49ers, I don't know what the total score of those 2 games were, but if I had to guess, it'd be like, I don't know, 75-20. I mean, they housed people last year. Mike McDonald's gone. And I think the pressure on this squad, their offensive line clearly is a little bit younger. I think DeCosta said because salary caps, part of the world we live in this modern day NFL. But to me, Munkin and Lamar. Like, Lamar's at the point now, like, what's he going to do? Win another MVP? Like, yeah, he might. And he's a great regular season player, but you don't want to turn into like the James Harden version of the NFL. Lamar's way more likable and definitely more enjoyable to watch, but just this great regular season player that something's off in the playoffs. We've also seen this before. Peyton Manning, and people push back, that's not true. It was true. We fucking watched Peyton Manning up until he finally got the monkey off his back on the big comeback against the Pats in the 2006 AFC Championship game look like a different human in the playoffs. He did not look the same. Now, some of those games were against Belichick, so somewhat understandable. Just like Lamar. It's like, well, if they weren't playing the Chiefs exist. And whether you got to go there or they come to you, you're going through them in this modern day football. So I'm fascinated to watch this. Yeah, Derrick Henry. I don't know. I've said this before. I close my eyes and I try to envision Lamar and Derrick Henry. It doesn't really feel like that's kind of a match, right? I don't know. It feels like Lamar is more likely to be with, I don't know, more of a scat back. Maybe that's unfair, but that's just my like gut feeling. Fascinated to see what it looks like. Loved watching Derrick Henry. But to me, part of Derrick Henry is you give him 20 carries because the first 13, he may have 30 yards. And then the next 2, he totals 78. And then all of a sudden you're like, damn, he's already over 100. It's like, yeah, he started slow. Then he just eats you alive. And is that, Lamar runs a lot. I don't know. It's going to be fascinating to watch. So my big question is just how Lamar and Munkin, for as bad as Lamar played, Munkin was even worse in that game. An absolute embarrassment to any gambler. Josh Allen just ran all over the Chiefs. And then he stopped calling runs and Lamar skipping passes and throwing picks in the end zone. It was just, if I'm a Ravens fan, like, this game's cool if I'm the Chiefs, just because as long as we got Patrick Mahomes, like having Steph Curry, it's like, let's just play some football. Like, we're going to see you guys in January. Let's just enjoy the fun. Or if you're a Ravens fan, like, can we fucking answer the bell, guys? I mean, what happened to us last year should be something we never forget. Last time we had one of those moments, I gave that Ray Lewis example. They came back and they won the Super Bowl. So, I mean, we're just looking for Lamar to win a couple playoff games before we can even talk Super Bowl. And I don't know. I wouldn't gamble on this game because, like, I couldn't bet on the Ravens to take on the Chiefs. But I'm also not a huge fan of taking favorites week 1. It just can be weird. Can't wait to watch. Can't wait to watch. NFL week 1 is here. And a new season means new ways to get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Fans have spoken. We want touchdowns. DraftKings heard us and is delivering. DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like picking a player to score a touchdown. Ready to do a touchdown dance of your own? New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $250 in bonus bets instantly, plus 1 month of NFL Plus Premium on us. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code JOHN. It's code JOHN for new customers to get $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. And get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium on us. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Okay, let's do some predictions because that's what everyone wants to know. I got the New York Giants win the Super. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, let's go. Let's just go AFC, NFC. Let's start with this, actually. I'll go with my Power Five. These are my top five teams in the National Football League. Obviously, number one, cemented in the Chiefs. Number two, also pretty easy for me, the 49ers. Number three, I'm going Detroit, who easily could have beat the 49ers in the NFC Championship game and had already beat the Chiefs week one. Like, I think Lions are for real. I kind of expect the Lions to be the number one overall seed. I'm throwing the Texans in there. I'm really thrown off by the AFC North. If the Ravens come back to earth a little bit, Steelers quarterback situation, it's hard for me to get behind Russell Wilson. The Browns, no way I can get behind Deshaun Watson. I mean, let's face it, part of the reason they had success last year was a guy that they refused to re-sign because they didn't want to make it weird the moment Deshaun sucked that everyone's asking for Joe Flacco. So I understand Myles Garrett is an all-time great talent. And the Bengals, I guess I'm going to pick them to win the division, but I don't feel great about Burrow's health. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I just like watching the guy play, but I think the Texans are going to be a major problem. And I like the Texans to win the division. I like the Texans to compete with the Chiefs for the conference. I like CJ Stroud to be, I would bet on him to be the MVP. I think betting on them to win the AFC or the number one seed, you can get it like plus 850 on DraftKings. I like that. To me, I struggled with the fifth. You could have gone Eagles, Cowboys. I like the Cowboys more than most. We already told you about those AFC North teams. Like, I'm kind of out. I went with the Packers because this is a little bit of a flyer. I mean, clearly they were good last year, especially down the stretch. But if Jordan Love is just a top 10 quarterback this year, that offense is going to be awesome. And defensively, it's just hard to be as shitty as they've been. So I bet against them last year, and I was proven wrong simply by going, who goes from Favre to Rodgers to another really good quarterback? It's like, statistically, that's impossible. Like, Montana to Young to Garcia is like an all-time trio, probably the best of all time. Hell, Alex Smith to Mahomes is one of the greatest handoffs we've ever seen. So to go from that, I just kind of believe in LaFleur as an offensive coach. He showed me a lot last year. So I'm going with the Packers in my top five. My bottom five is pretty easy. I think there are some bad teams. The Pats are atrocious. I mean, they are if they're on TV and they're playing another non-playoff team, you might not even give that a box. They're not even worth watching. I think Carolina is going to be pretty bad. I know a lot of people are trying to zag. I still think they're going to be pretty terrible. Until proven otherwise, it's hard for me to get behind a quarterback who's that tiny. It really is. And listen, I liked him coming out of college. I did. But when you see the visual of the body next to other NFL players, it's pretty jarring. The Raiders. I know they caught lightning in a bottle the moment they fired Josh McDaniels and Antonio Pierce took over, but I just think this thing's going to be a disaster. I really do. There's already a lot of buzz about Devontae getting traded. It's hard to win when your quarterback room is Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. And here's the thing. Aiden O'Connell beat the Chiefs. They literally beat the Chiefs, who had one of the worst games they've ever had in the Andy Reid era. Aiden O'Connell did not complete a pass in the second quarter, the third quarter, or the fourth quarter. I'd say that's an all-time fluky NFL win. Not that fluky, the defense kicked Mahomes' ass. I'm just saying, how often does a team win when that is the case? And I just think the quarterback play, I'm sorry, I can't get behind. Washington is a team so many people are really high on. I'm not. Not because Adam Peters, rooting for him, like him. Jaden Daniels, clearly a big-time talent. Their roster is just not very good, and they're going to be depending on a lot of young players. Cowboys and Eagles are good. I think the hype on this thing, I understand it because it's exciting, but I don't see it. I don't see it at all. I think they are competing to be, a top five drafting team with positivity. Like, you can still draft in the top five and have a lot of moments with the quarterback. To me, that's the best case scenario. You'd rather win 4 games than win 7. What does 7 and 10 do for you? 4 gets you in the mix to get a sweet player in the draft, and then next year, boom, you're 8 or 9 wins. but they got a long way to go. The kid's going to be running for his life. And, I kind of, it's hard. I mean, there are a lot of teams that kind of feel that 6-7 win games. That's kind of the Giants to me. I don't think they're as bad as those teams I just listed, but I think when Daniel Jones is your quarterback, it's just hard to win. So their defense should be pretty solid. Uh, Obviously, Malik Neighbors is a hard player not to like, but over the course of a season, I'm just out on Daniel Jones. I mean, somehow they won 9 games and he threw 15 touchdowns 2 years ago. When you look at divisions, the Bills, easiest pick on the board. Like, you couldn't pay me to pick Miami after last year and they're worse. Obviously, the Jets, I mean, at any moment, a couple injuries, see ya. And the Pats suck. I had waffled back and forth on the AFC North, thinking, like go with the Colts. And then one morning during the preseason, flipped on NFL Network, and the Colts were playing the Bengals, maybe. I forget. Oh, they're Bears. Forget the game. But Anthony Richardson started, so I'm like, okay. And he's just throwing 100-mile-an-hour fastballs to guys that were within a 10-yard radius of him. And it's like, this is going to be a pretty big work in progress for Shane Steichen, who's an excellent coach. And I think if he can just corral him like he did Jalen Hurts a couple years ago, he might not be an MVP candidate right away, but you can make the playoffs. But it's hard for me to pick you to win the division when the Texans have a quarterback who dominates from within the pocket. Tank Dell's a stud. Nico Collins, if you don't know about him, you're going to know about him fast. And I just think they're going to be excellent. To me, D'Amico's just one of those guys. He was just meant to win. And that's what the guy does. He won as a player. He's won as an assistant coach. He won immediately as a head coach. Everyone around him wants to either promote him as a team captain. They want to promote him from a position coach to a coordinator, from a coordinator to a head coach. He's just a rocket ship. And I don't bet against rocket ships. I'm telling you, I think the Texans, if that defense can come along and these offensive skill guys can take the next step, I think they're a sleeper to compete with the Chiefs to win the AFC. The North's really hard for me. I went the Bengals. I don't feel great about this. Probably the Bengals and the Ravens are our playoff teams from that division. Steelers are always winning. I'm shorting them this season. I don't think they're going to be terrible, but maybe this is the year that they go 8-9, not 9-8 or 10-7. And then obviously the AFC North, you don't even need, or excuse me, the AFC West. Do we even need to talk about it? It's not who's going to win the division. We know who's going to win the division. I think the question mark is, could the Chargers or the Broncos make the playoffs? And I've been throwing these bets out, right? Denver, you get 6-1 to make the playoffs. The Chargers were a sleeper, I think like 4 or 5-1 to make the playoffs. If you can find a way to parlay Chargers or the Broncos to make the playoffs, I think one of those two teams makes it. Now, anytime you got a rookie quarterback, there could be ups and downs. Love them. Love the Broncos week 1, getting 6 points on the road in Seattle. But I think one of those two teams make it. Look around the AFC. Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh are two of the best coaches in the conference. Hell, in the league. If you did a coach draft from scratch, I mean, Jim Harbaugh's probably going in the top 4 or 5. Sean Payton, just because a little bigger, kind of a little crazier, likes a little more power, still going in the top 10. So this is a coaching quarterback league. We know Herbert's a good player. And if Bo Nix becomes a good player, like him as offensive rookie of the year, 10-1, it's going to work. When I look at the NFC East, I've gone back and forth. I'm pro both the teams. I think we see what we've seen the last couple years. They're both good. And the other two teams in the division just aren't good. And what we've seen when the Eagles and Cowboys play each other, games are really close. Games are really fun. I ended up going just, I guess, a little counterculture. Everyone's picking the Eagles. I like the Eagles. I think whoever doesn't win this division is more than likely the 5th seed in the playoffs. So probably playing my Saints. But I went with Dallas. And I think it's going to be close. Come down the last couple of weeks. But I think Dallas, one advantage they have over the Eagles, because this matters to me. Who's your coach? Who's your quarterback? Well, what coach do you like more, McCarthy or Sirianni? Well, I see McCarthy rattling off 12 wins every year for Dallas, and now he calls plays. And unlike Sirianni, he's proven he can call the plays. Now, I like Kellen Moore a lot too, but the dynamics there, it can just get. I lived in Philly for a couple of years. I've seen how weird things get for the Eagles. It's hard. Now, their talent top to bottom roster, I'd probably lean the Eagles, but Cowboys coaching. The other thing is Cowboys, Eagles draft well. Cowboys draft well too. Like they have a long history. They're running backs. Guys, this isn't 1989. We're not depending on, Walter Payton and Barry Sanders to carry my franchise. Passing league. You can go, who are their extra wide receivers, but I like Ferguson. And here's the other thing, Mike Zimmer. So you lose Dan Quinn, which in theory can be a big blow. He was excellent beside the playoff game for the Cowboys. But like Mike Zimmer's kind of big time. I think they're going to be okay. So I gave the Cowboys the slight edge, also like the Eagles to make the playoffs. And this is a division that the NFC South, everyone and their mother's picking Atlanta. I'm sorry, I'm not. I've said I think the best value you could argue in the entire NFL is the Saints. They went 9-8 last year. They hired a real offensive coordinator this year. Their defense is really, really good. And the division's not great. Like everyone anointing Atlanta like they're Belichick and Brady. Give me a fucking break. I like Cousins. He's gotten a lot better. But for a lot of his career, it was like, this Kirk Cousins, what's his deal? And now we're just anointing him like signing Peyton Manning or something. It's a good signing for them. They didn't have a choice, but they also used a first-round pick on someone that's not even going to play. So they had a top 10 pick, and they get nothing out of it in theory if Cousins keeps playing. So I like the Saints. I've liked the Saints for a long time, and I like them even stronger now. And everyone that wants to short the Saints, I don't know. Maybe I'm high on drugs. We'll find out, but I like the Saints a lot. And then a lot like the Cowboys and the Packers. I think there's a little bit more separation here. Like I think the Lions are the clear pick for me to win the division. But I think like whoever doesn't win it out of Dallas and Philly, I like the Packers right there, as a 5-6 seed. So I think the Packers, if Jordan Love is really good. The difference of Dallas and Philly, like if Jordan Love looks like he did the last 8 games, I'm taking Jordan Love over Dak or Jalen Hurts without question. And in theory, he's more talented than Jared Goff. But the way what Jared Goff has in that offensive line and those skill guys, I mean, Jared Goff's top 10 quarterback in the NFL. So if their defense, especially the secondary, is better than it was last year, I mean, I think the Lions can win the Super Bowl. So that's just, you got to see it play out. But I would expect Aiden Hutchinson to have a massive, massive season. I mean, massive year. And I think we end up looking back and go, why didn't he go number 1 overall? How did that happen? And then the NFC West. I'm picking the Niners. I think it's pretty simple. Kyle Shanahan and that defense has owned Geno Smith, beat him 5 straight times. Obviously, McVay got him in the biggest game they ever played in the NFC Championship, but Kyle owns McVay. And, Kyler's tough, but you're talking a team that's going to go 4-2, 5-1 in the division. Like, the Niners are winning it again. Now they have, it's funny, they have one of the oldest teams in the NFL. It's like 27.1 years old, right? And then like the 14th oldest team, so like you cut it in half, is like 26.1. So I've been 26, I've been 27. There's no difference. Now, if you want to say Trent Williams 36, that's fair. George Kittle's 30, a lot of wear and tear. That's those 2 individual players. But Debo, Ayuk, McCaffrey has been pretty healthy since he's been a 49er. And Fred Warner, keep an eye on a guy named Diamador Lenore. He is going to become a star corner this year. Charvarius, they have the difference to me between them and the Rams. Obviously, if Stafford is humming, he is a better player than Purdy. But one, Stafford is pretty hit or miss in terms of he can be really streaky. He can have 2 or 3 weeks where he leads the league in interceptions. And they're very, very dependent on some young guys. I like Jared Verse. I think Braden Fisk, the defensive tackle, that obviously Florida State misses those 2 guys. But pretty dependent on some young guys. You lose, I don't know, someone pretty important. Well, Aaron Donald. Now, I like the Rams to make the playoffs. I think, to me, Eagles, Cowboys, Lions, Packers, Niners, Rams. That's division winners and the wild cards. But I think a lot of people, there's still some question marks with the Rams. I think there are less question marks with the 49ers. And then just based on their success in the division against the people, I feel pretty good about it. So I think the two wild card teams in the AFC and NFC. For the AFC, it's the Colts, as we talked about. Just what does Anthony Richardson look like? You can tell me he has games where he throws for 4 touchdowns and runs for another 2, and you can tell me he has games where he throws 5 interceptions. I don't know. And he's probably going to have some of those games. Like, you just see Anthony Richardson bust off a 70-yard run, and then he's going to have a game like, did Anthony Richardson just throw back-to-back passes that were pick sixes? And how they balance that, because they do have a really talented team. Their defense is going to be good, I think. But I don't know. I don't know what to expect. And I think the Bears are another team. The hype on them is outrageous. Everybody and their mother is going to bet on them, I would imagine, week 1 against the Titans. Not me. Not because I don't like the Bears, just because I think week 1, we got to punt the brakes a little bit. The hype is pretty nuts. But to me, the Bears can be a really, really solid 8-9 win team. Or if Caleb just has a CJ Stroud type year because their defense is good and because of the weapons they have on offense, they could win 11 games. But I think that, I don't know. And it's never as easy for rookie quarterbacks as we think it's going to be given the hype. What CJ Stroud did, what Andrew Luck did, typically doesn't happen. Doesn't mean it can't with Caleb. I definitely think that with Jaden. Like, everyone else pump the brakes a little bit. Doesn't mean they're not going to have great games. Doesn't mean they can't win like week 1. But over the course of a season, every single week, seeing good teams, the more film that gets out about you, the more they know what your weaknesses are and force you to that. This is, no one's going to class in this league. No one's fucking going to study hall. The study hall's in the meeting room, 24/7, 365. These coaches are getting paid millions of dollars. It is just really, really hard for young players, especially ones with the weight of the world on their shoulders. And Caleb's, I think he's an impressive guy. And I think Ryan Poles has done a great job. But it's going to be really, really intense, especially given their division. Like, the Lions are fucking good. The Packers have been winning for 30 years. It's hard. It's like, Caleb, save us, which I understand. I don't blame any Bears fan for saying that. But I think they could have a positive, like, next 3 years, and this year doesn't go win-loss record as well as people think. And overall, this is just a home run kind of, team building exercise for the team. Like, in 2 years, like, damn, the Bears are really good. But I just think we're kind of, sometimes you got to walk before you run. And I feel like we've put the cart in front of the horse. So, like, Bears Super Bowl contender, or could the Bears win the division? Like, I don't know. They got a rookie quarterback. Do you know how difficult that is? Even if this is one of the best situations ever for a rookie. It's hard. When you play in, you could argue that it's the best division in football. So, buckle up, baby.